so much happened in 30 minutes. I can't process it.
Yeah.
I feel like that was both the quickest 30 minutes of my life and the longest 30 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
Letters, and then the reunion, and then Izzy. I mean, those are the three big things. Oh, and then the end.
I completely agree with you because that both felt like a full-length feature film to me and like Whiplash. And there's no in between. There's no in between. Like,
yeah,
I know it was 30 minutes. It didn't feel like 30 minutes. It felt like an hour. But then everything, but it felt like an hour because everything that happened was jam-packed into 30 minutes. So there's just a lot to pull apart. So to the tune of us talking about the episode overall, I want to ask you your opinions on the episode overall, Caitlin. You started to go there. I want you to continue down that road now. Tell me about it.
I loved it. I really did. I think it was a lot jam-packed into 30 minutes, but I feel like it worked for me. And, I mean, obviously I'm on the side of they needed more episodes this season, but I still think that, like, again, given what they were given, they did a really good job laying it all out, and like to be able to watch that and for it to end and be like, wow, that all just happened. Like Ed being a fisherman in the beginning feels like years ago compared to things that happen in the middle of the episode. So it was, I don't know, I feel like it worked. I feel like it was a satisfying ending, but it still left things open for a third season. I'm just glad that it ended on a happy note after everything that we went through last season. I think I needed that. I think everyone needed that. So I'm honestly like overall like happy with it. Everything, you know, narratively made sense to me. Everything like flowed well for me. I am satisfied. How about you?
I think that my opinions on this episode are going to be some of the most complex, almost convoluted opinions that I have had about anything recently. I think the way I feel about this episode, it's going to be eternally fluid. I think the way I feel about it today is different than how I felt about it the day I saw it. And it's going to be different than the way I feel about it in months from now when I watched it again in years. I went through all the emotions after watching it on Friday. Like, you saw me. I was like acceptance, confusion, excitement, contentment, discontentment, mourning, crying, screaming, laughing. I'm still kind of revolving between them all, but there was a point where I was just laying on the floor listening to Phoebe Bridgers and just staring up. And I don't think I went someplace else for that.
You were gone.
However long the song was, I was elsewhere. I was in the album cover for Punisher. That's where I was. I've thought about this a lot, and I've tried not to read. I also have tried not to read any, like, I have not read any fan discourse about it. Like, I've not read any reviews, anything like that. Yep. I don't want to be influenced by anybody but my own, like, inward gut feeling when I talk about this. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I felt like I got a lot of whiplash from the pacing of this episode.
Okay.
Like I just said, when I like slice apart the episode like a cake, there are a lot of individual little things that I like that we're going to talk about that I'm really excited to talk about because they just hit me in such a warm and comforting way. But I also feel like I wasn't given adequate time to feel the full weight of other things, especially in the last like 10 minutes or so of the episode, namely Izzy's death and like Lucius and Pete's wedding, as well as the end scene. Like that last 10 minutes, like the first 20, I was like, you've got me. And then the last 10, I think I got taken out a little bit by that. And I think it kind of showed in like the writing and some of the, you know, the really quick loose ends that were being tied up. And I think you could make the argument that it is like kind of the inherent irony of piracy that you could just die randomly for no reason out of the blue, or get married or perform a treacherous scheme. And there doesn't need to be a lot of setup to tell the story, because I know that's something I get caught on a lot as a writer. And that's where I'll get boxed in, is with setup and with saying, okay, here are all the leading events that we need to show for the climax to strike the audience the way it's supposed to. But even with this in mind, I think it does show, this is where I am right now. I think it shows how limited the creatives were by the studio. And I don't think I truly understood that until the season concluded. Like, until this point, I knew they had a limited budget to work with and fewer episodes and less time. And I don't want to like compare it outright to indie film production because there are still a lot more resources there, but there are similarities in that you're really working with what you have. And that's something that I find myself having to take into consideration when setting this down beside season 1.
Yeah.
And like, I think it, you know, I'm like, see, like, as I'm talking, like, my opinions are evolving. Like, I do think it holds to the extent that you can tell that love and care went into curating the story just by listening to its writers and its costume designer and its music supervisors. I don't know. I also just think there was something missing from this season that the last season had. And a lot of it has to do with the studio's influence. And that's kind of where I am right now, you know?
No, but that makes sense because, like, I think if we had 2 more episodes, we would have had way more time with everything that happened in the last 10 minutes. Like, I think that Izzy's whole scene would have been longer, and we would have had maybe, like, a more drawn-out wedding between Pete and Lucius. We would have had more time with our crew members as a whole if they had given more time. Like, I think that was another through line this season is that, like, you're realizing, oh, we haven't seen, like, Olawande and Jim a lot, or we haven't. Buttons is a bird now, and he's just gone.
Buttons is a bird.
Like,
yeah.
Or like the Swede was, you know, like gone by episode 1 or 2, and then he comes back, but he's not with the crew, and it's just like it's too bad that was a thing that the studios like cost them to acknowledge the fact that they did cut them episodes and time and budget. It's really sad to be like, oh, we could have had this drawn out. We could have had this more fleshed out a bit. So yeah, I agree with you.
I feel like to go through the experience of maybe coming away from this season with disappointment and have it be for something that is so special to me and like a piece of art that I really love and care about, it's been a really reflective experience because I feel like I'm giving grace to creators that I haven't done with that's something I haven't done with other shows, when I've been critical of them. But I'm also like, it's easier for me to pinpoint where things are potentially falling apart than it was with other shows where I was just like, just do something different, you know? Now it's easy for me to say, okay, it seems like there wasn't as much purse power. This was the contract they were given to work with. Like, it's just
you see
so
the
much more
side of it
nuanced. Yeah, and it's awful, you know, like it's terrible that this is like what kind of the world that artists are operating in within the entertainment industry. But I also think this is a good lesson in like, you know, doing what you can with the resources you have, because there is a lot of stuff that still works really well in this finale. And that's stuff we are going to talk about now. So without further ado, Caitlin, tell me about the thing that keeps you up at night when it comes to this finale. Tell me about it.
Oh, the letters. The letters. I have tears in my eyes just thinking about it. I can't. This fucking broke me. This is where I started to lose it. It's gonna like, it's like ending my life, but also it's gonna keep me going. The rest, like, I genuinely cannot believe that Ed found one of Steve's letters and he read it, and it was the most poetic shit you could ever imagine. And just in case anybody needs a reminder for what was said, if this isn't already etched into your brain, the letter says, "Dear Ed, I long for you. Every day we spend apart feels like an eternity. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I write these letters daily, hoping one will reach you. Hope that's okay. And I know we're not through. I can feel it in my soul. A love like ours can't disappear in an instant. We're joined to one another, intertwined. We wrote our names on each other in permanent ink." If that's not love, I don't know what is. When we were watching it, Eberlyn, you know this because we were together watching this, but yes. I didn't even hear the letter. I didn't even hear what was being said because I was yelling too much. Ed fishing out his Blackbeard getup to do what Pop Pop said and go and do the thing that he was good at, and then he dons this version of him that he keeps desperately trying to get rid of because he feels like he's unlovable as Blackbeard, and he immediately comes out of the water and finds evidence that he's been loved all along by Steed while they were apart, and proof that he is lovable, and crying over the words that Steed wrote to him. And the voiceovers, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, that's what makes me cry, is when, like, it starts with Steed, and then you hear Ed reading it, and it cuts back to Steed, and then Ed, and then their voices are overlapped, and they are in perfect sync with each other as they say, "We wrote our names on each other in permanent ink."
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're crazy for that. What the actual heck? Another incredible part of this scene that I love so much is the music. And as always, I'm going to reference a Tumblr post because people continue to amaze me over there and put things into words that I never could. So this post is from Tumblr user A Muse of Fire, and they identify each theme that's played throughout the letter reading scene. Right. It begins with the song Air of the G String, which in the post they say is used as an unrequited love theme where love is real and there, but there's an uncertainty about whether it's reciprocated. And then there's a really brief note of the Kraken motif, which plays when we see Ed stab the British soldier, and then it leads straight in to Nasia number 5, baby! It's back! It's back. We haven't seen it in like 2 episodes, and she's back. And this time it's played with a full orchestra, and it's in a more triumphant key than we've ever heard it. And they're finally in tune with each other, and I'm normal about it. Okay, moving on. and then Nasia number 5 goes into Blackbeard's theme because he has work to do, and the person who made this post on Tumblr goes to say that this is the first time in the show that all 3 of Ed's themes are interweaving together and overlapping and part of a whole. They are no longer disparate parts of him. He is them, and they are all him. I think that is so cool.
Wow. That's intense.
That was my favorite part of the entire episode. It was a lot.
It's such a great scene too, because it's like their unifying moment. Like, they're apart, but you get to hear them read it together. I think that the whimsy that's embodied in this scene through the writing is also really wonderful. That, like, you know, of all of the random bottles in the ocean that wash up on random beaches, the fact that Ed would find the one that has a letter in it to Steed is so like wonderful and romantic and just lovely. What else I like about this scene is it not closely parallels, but has a similar structure to the conclusion of one of my favorite films, When Harry Met Sally, directed by Rob Reiner, and written by Nora Ephron, where at the very end of the film, Harry is out at night on New Year's by himself, and he stops and he turns because he realizes that Sally is the person he wants to be with. And as he turns to walk away, as he turns and he has this revelation, similar to the revelation Ed is having in this scene, you hear Frank Sinatra's "It Had to Be You" come in, and he starts running, and it's such a great scene because, again, it's like the use of music to provoke that revelation, that change, that completion of the character's arc is so stunning. So I loved that. Like, that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that scene was Harry running to Sally, and I was like, yes, go to him. Go to him. I just love that it's a full orchestra version of Nasia number 5 instead of the soft little piano version that we've always had. Like, it's just, it's fuller, it's warmer, it's, they're on the same playing field. I can't. Yeah, it's a good scene. It's a good stuff. Speaking of music, that took me out. I'm sorry, the second that Nina Simone started playing again, gone. I was gone. I was done. I'm talking about the beach reunion. We got our beach reunion, baby. And I'm never going to recover from it. We said they were running to each other when we watched the teaser trailer for it. This was simply too much. It was too much. The cuts in that scene were glorious. Like,
Yeah.
So well thought out. This was like the piece that I if they were tying up loose ends with a bow, the bow was perfect. It's going on a present that I'll be giving to my mother at Christmas time. Like, there's just, I mean, that final bit where they meet each other.
Yeah.
And how it parallels the dream sequence from the beginning. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh,
they're crazy for that.
Crazy for that. Crazy for that. David. David, that's crazy.
It's crazy. I just love that Steed got his dream sequence fulfilled, and it's even softer and lovelier than he ever could imagine. They kiss on the beach, and I just love how the whole, like, sorry I was such a dick. You're not a dick. Life's a dick. It's like the rom-com equivalent of saying, like, hey, it's okay. Life's been really hard, and we've gone through so much, but I forgive you, and I love you anyway. And it's beautiful. To quote yet another Tumblr post, because this is where I live, from Tumblr user Ed's Back Tattoo, they have a great post that talks about how it's about being a dick and still being loved, and how they've both left each other, and they still come back, and they make mistakes, and they fuck up along the way, but they still love each other the entire way, and how they finally found their home within each other. And it makes me crazy. It makes me so crazy. And then they kiss again. And it's so tender the way Ed just, like, gently reaches out to cup Steed's neck and face and just bring him in for another kiss. And Steed turns into him. And Ed is constantly in the scene. He is constantly leaning in towards Steed. And then, oh, man. Oh, jeez. Okay, we get an I love you. We get I love yous. He says, I love you. I love you. And Steed says, I know that. Because he knows. He knows he loves him. And what has Steed ever been so sure and confident about anything in his life?
What does Steed know?
What does Steed know? Not a lot. But he knows that Ed loves him. And Ed is loved. And it's so beautiful.
Something else I like that this sequence does, the comparison between the dream that Steed had and the reality is not only does it show us that Steed is getting his dream, but also that it's still grounded in reality. Like, the person that Steed is when he meets Ed on the beach in this finale scene, like, is different, is changed, has changed through the season, and is probably the closest he'll ever come to the depiction of him in the dream sequence, which was like this dashing bearded man with like a sash, so
like a stereotypical pirate look.
Yeah, I think for him to be, to be back in the blue for this scene, and to have like an earring, and to have some really slight changes to his character from the beginning of the season is really, really interesting. But, like, there's other things, too, like the colors being a little faded in reality because nothing is as, surreal as the sunsets in your dreams where you're running to your lover. And, like, in order to get through all of that, they have to run to each. Oh, I'm just thinking about, it's all hitting me. I'm just thinking about, like, the parallels between Steed thinking that in order to get Ed back, he has to kill the thing between them, which is Izzy. And like, comparing that to the fact that it's like, in reality, that doesn't happen until after oh my god, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I wish I could process all of this in a coherent way, but literally there's just like Mater from Cars revolving in a circle in my head. Like, I can't think of anything. I'm like, welcome back to Radiator Springs. I got nothing.
Well, also, like, how in Steed's dream, it was like the more masculine version of himself. How he felt like, in order to be accepted and loved, he has to have like this
who he
beard,
has to
be pirate, and like, in reality, it's so soft. The way they hold each other is so lovely and so soft and tender. And I don't think Steed would ever dream that, because I think when he was dreaming it, he didn't know that his softness is why he is loved so much. It comes back to the whole idea of the thing that they both don't like about themselves the most is what the other loves them and admires them for. And it's just good stuff.
Welcome to the Con O'Neill Corner, where we talk about Con O'Neill for an abnormal amount of time.
Didn't know it was going to come to this one, did we? The Con O'Neill Corner has a sad blanket around it today.
So, we lost someone.
Yeah, we
lost
did do
someone
that.
this season, and it turns out it's Con O'Neill.
Oh man.
Tell me how you feel about Izzy Hand's death.
Well, firstly, I feel a little perplexed because you and I went on a little walk before we watched the show.
We did go on a walk, yeah.
And we started talking like, oh, what do we think is going to happen? And then I don't know where it started, but we were like, what if Izzy died? And we had this whole long conversation about like, oh, like maybe, but I don't know. Would the show do that? Is it that kind of show? Who knows? I remember not being super committed to it, and you're like, nah, I think it's going to happen. I think it's totally going to happen. And then like as the episode went on, I was just like, oh no, we're focusing a lot on Izzy this episode. We're doing a lot, like his whole like scene with Ricky. It was like I was looking at it and like, this feels poignant. This feels like a lot. And then he fucking died.
Yeah.
I was a little shocked that they actually killed him. However, I think it made sense. I think it like narratively it made sense. I feel like to watch Izzy, who is kind of like this like personification of piracy, to see him in season 1 be this guy who it's just capital P pirate. Like he is, if you think of pirate, you're thinking Izzy Hands. And like to see him go on the journey of like being just constantly perplexed and annoyed with Steed and his crew, and to think that like, no, this isn't what piracy is about. This isn't it. Like it's about being tough and killing people and you can't be soft. And then for him to want Blackbeard over all of that, and then to learn this season that it's about belonging to something and finding that he can have a family, that he can have belonging here, and to see him go on that journey of self-discovery in a way to like become this and just incredible character. I mean, I think he was an incredible character from the beginning. Like he was always so intriguing, but like to see him grow this season and, you know, be the unicorn and learn to love the crew and see that the crew loves him, and to see the impact that Steed has on piracy and has on Ed, and to come to terms with all of that, and then to apologize to Ed and be like, I needed Blackbeard and you need to be Ed, and for him to echo the whole like there he is line. I don't know, it came full circle to me, and I felt like that was a good ending to Izzy Hands.
I don't think it's so this is, I think, a point of contention for a lot of people, this death of this character. I don't think it's a bad thing that this has caused so much discord, because actually I think, and I don't say this to be like, well, to play devil's advocate, but like I think it's actually really good, because art affects all people very differently, and that's one of its purposes, you know? So to look at this and be moved, I guess, to sadness or to anger or what have you, I think is really healthy. I think it gets unhealthy when you like get lost in fandom discord. And I hope that that's where I would hope people can ground themselves in the reality of the world we live in right now, where the desire to be included and to be seen and to be heard and to be able to exist without fear of persecution exists outside of fandom and outside of the internet right now in some very scary, real, horrible ways. So I think that's kind of where I've landed, because I don't have strong opinions on it. I think that Izzy's death works really well on paper. I think an execution is, again, where I get lost because of just the pacing of the episode, frankly. Like,
oh yeah,
when I'm watching the scene, I'm like, yeah, okay, I think it does make narrative sense for just based on the arc that they've set up for him all season. Like, if you told me, honestly, when I was watching episode 1 of the series, I was like, oh,
Oh.
It was good knowing that guy. But as you know, and as the series went on, I was like, okay, this is a very Izzy-centric season for a lot of reasons, and I think that there's something to that's going to pay off or devastate people, depending on how you look at it, in the season's conclusion. So I feel like I saw it coming, so it wasn't shocking for me. There's that. But then also, okay. I think in terms of pacing, it was just like, I think I needed more time to like process that this is what was happening, you know? Because it felt like maybe given Ed and Izzy's exchange at the very conclusion of the episode, there was more time for their characters to interact this season beyond kind of what happened in the first 3 episodes. And I just felt like, again, I feel like to tell a story that concludes with Izzy's death, I think it needed to be a longer story.
Yeah.
I also don't think there's a world, and this is something that David has had to say on Twitter. Poor David, leave David alone.
Poor David.
But like, I don't think there's a world where Izzy's character isn't part of the show, and I could totally see them pulling his character back into the narrative in, like, I don't know, for flashbacks or something else in the final season, because that's just what
Buttons is a witch and uses witch powers.
Yeah, Buttons is a witch. You really just gotta let anything happen on this show, is what I'm learning.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss him too. I mean, I'm not gonna miss him that much, because again, it's like, people don't just die on this show. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Even when they die, they don't die. So I'm kind of like looking at it like, oh yeah, I'll probably be back. It's kind of the way it works. See. And if not,
all I could think about the entire time was just like, can we just get another piece of the unicorn to like patch him up with? Like, he'll be fine. It'll just become the entire unicorn at this point. It'll be the remainder of the unicorn in Izzy's head. Like,
yeah. Yup.
Yeah, I can't say that he won't come back, because literally anything can happen, and Buttons is a bird now, and he landed on Izzy's grave, so do with that what you will. There isn't a world where Izzy isn't involved, according to David. So at this point, I'm like, this was sad, made sense to me, but also if he just showed up unannounced in the first episode of season 3, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Makes complete sense.
The bar for continuity is on the floor.
Yeah, and I love it.
I think we should wrap up with the ending.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you felt about this ending.
I think I'm just so overjoyed with not having a devastating cliffhanger again.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, woohoo! Yay! And I love that they are innkeepers. And what I love about it is that they're on, for the first time, they are on the same playing field. They're not, Ed becoming a like really, really well-known pirate and being at the end of his career to Steed being at the start of his pirate career. They're now they're coming into this at the same level, and I'm really excited for that, because I think there's so much growth to be had. Like, the story isn't done. Mm-hmm. They have ideas for season 3 to be their third and final season, and that is going to be the worst run that I've ever seen in my life, and I want to see that happen. I want to see them like build their relationship together, because that's what they're doing. They are fixing up this house and their relationship, and back in episode 4 of this season, Mary Reed said to them, like, the whole idea of like, you're living the same life day to day, and you're trying to keep your relationship interesting, and the things that you do to keep that going. And I think that would come back. I think that would come back in season 3 as a running theme. And and stepping away from the Ed and Steed side of it, there's the whole idea with Zhang being like, let's hunt down the guy that killed Izzy and kill him. So I think they're going to be doing that. Piracy isn't over completely yet, so I would like to see where that goes. So I do like there were things that were left open, but the conclusion of Ed and Steed together as innkeepers, ready to start building their relationship, I think is so satisfying to me, as someone who just needed that happy, soft ending. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the love that the creators had for their characters comes through in the conclusion of this season because of the uncertainty surrounding renewal. And that's really the driving force for me in like finding the ending satisfying is that there is no certainty that this show will get picked up again. And I think it was a really thoughtful thing to not let those characters spend this finale apart as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that they can kind of be happy, and that even if this show ends and it doesn't get renewed for a third season, we can all find contentment in the fact that these two are running an inn by the sea, and like that thread could potentially be picked up again with renewal or by another network or you know any fan fiction writer or any artist, any person, and like let their imagination run wild is so compelling that David essentially offered a fan fiction prompt to the fans with this final scene, instead of leaving them in angst, and then also weaving in these opportunities that, you know, make potential infinite for the show, that like they could go after the British now, that they could avenge Izzy. I think it's a really well-rounded way to end this series, to end this season, and then potentially the series if it came down to it, worst case scenario. So I agree with you. I also love that this fandom knows its characters well enough that the moment we hear about Jeff's inn by the sea in episode 3, we're like, oh, he just wants to own an inn by a sea, and then he does, and then that's what's happening by the end of the season. Is so, I mean, it's wonderful. Like I think that's great.
I couldn't believe that was happening, because like I think I even said in the podcast, I'm like, I just want them to be together and be innkeepers by the sea. And then the fact that we got that this episode, I was like, oh shit, okay, let's go. And like one of my first thoughts was, oh, I cannot wait to read all of the fan fiction about this. It's gonna be so good. In fact, I found one already, and I'm like, can't wait to read it tonight.
Can't wait to read it tonight.
I'm so excited. Get me through this wait to see if we're renewed or not. But good ending.
Great ending. Yeah. There's nothing I could say to add to this, because I really do think like it speaks for itself. I think they did a really good job of closing the book on the show, but leaving a couple bookmarks in for renewal.
Yeah.
So now let's turn to talk a little bit about the season as a whole.
Yay!
So Caitlin, how did this season treat you?
Well, I love this show. I think it was different to watch it live this time around, but it was fun to be like in my little fandom space that I've curated for myself online, and like just like, you know, I would wake up early so I could watch it with another friend in a different time zone, and we could like talk together about it, and then I go on Tumblr and I see what other people had to say. It was a really fun experience overall, especially since like this show makes me so insane. So it was really fun to do that every week of October, so that was cool. I can't say how many times, like, you know, I wanted them to have more time and have it not go so quick, but I continue to stand by the fact that given what they had, I felt like it was a really great season, and I'm really excited to watch all of it as a whole. Like, I have a lot of things coming up in my life, but I have like a day dedicated to where I'm like, this is the day, once everything is done, I can just stay home and watch all of Our Flag Means Death and just see how it all feels together, put together, not have a week in between each set of episodes. And I say I really, really enjoyed the season too, because there's not an episode where I go, that was kind of mid. Like, I liked every episode, some way more than others, but like, I don't know, I felt that it worked really well, and it was so much fun. And I think what else I really love about this show is that it's an original idea, and the people on this show are so creative and it's so passionate about it, and it shows where it doesn't feel like, you know, remake number 84 that is coming out by streaming service. So
Right.
it's just, I hold this show up on a pedestal for that reason, because it is so creative and it is so loved by its first and foremost its creators, and writers and costume designers and actors, who I cannot wait for them to be able to share the things that they've made. So yeah, overall I had a grand old time this season. What about you?
Yeah, I think I liked it too.
I think I liked it.
I feel like I like the idea of like going back and watching the entire series as a whole. I think that would be so cool to kind of just be able to take a step back and look at the whole big picture. But I also think that, much like with my opinions on the final episode, my opinion on this season specifically will probably be eternally fluid. Like, I think there's always going to be things that I'm pulling out of it that I'm like, I loved that. Or things that I'll be reflecting on and being like, oh, I wish that this had gone differently. Mm-hmm. And that's such an interesting exercise for me, given that I had like no criticism about the first season at all. And I think there are a lot of like differences between this season and the previous season contextually, just because of the studios, and also like having this giant fan base now dedicated full time to dissecting every moment of the series that wasn't there when the show first aired last year. I think that's all. I mean, it's kind of a recipe for disaster, but also incredible opportunities to build community and, you know, make friends and bond over cool art. So like something that I've been doing a lot since the season ended is just kind of like pulling apart my relationship with the show over the last year or so, and just kind of thinking like, yeah, like this is really what it takes to create art. Yeah. This is how serious it can be. So I like that this show through these 2 seasons has given me an outlet to think about that more. Yeah. So I really love this season overall. Like I do. I think it's awesome. I think that there are things that I think I'm always going to be writing like medium essays in my head about, but I really did like it overall. Yeah.
Yay. Did you have a favorite episode?
I really liked episode 4. Fun and Games. I think I mentioned this when we first talked about it, but I just loved it. I loved it. It's, to me, that episode embodies everything that I love about the show. The whimsy, the toxic gay rep, the cool costumes, the unique fun characters, like everything that happened in that episode is, I think, the closest for me to what, like, when I think about this show, that's the episode I think about, you know? So that one for me will be a standout forever, and I'll probably be watching it as like a comfort episode for the rest of my days. How about you?
Well, going along with that, my favorite episode is episode 5, The Curse of the Seafaring Life, because it was such a good crew episode. It was like a slice of life episode too, to see Steed kind of learn more about being a pirate, and then you see Ed kind of continue his self-healing journey. And then of course I get my moon kiss. So like I will forever be insane about that. That is my home. I live there now. And I like that episode made me the most insane. I think like I think I talked about it here, but I went to work that day after watching the episode and I was so fucking useless. I just remember being like, I have so much to do, but I'm not doing anything.
I can't do
I'm just thinking about them under the moon, getting the You Wear Fine Things parallel kiss. It was that scene is everything to me.
Everything to me.
So that will, I think, forever be my favorite episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure, without a doubt, my favorite episode.
Thank you to those of you who have tuned in to our weekly reviews of Our Flag Means Death Season 2. We hope you'll stick around for all of our future escapades talking about things that we are not normal about.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and review and subscribe and all of the above.
And please leave us a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you like what you heard. All right. Bye.
Bye.